I talk to you all. Today's topic, I'm gonna get right down to it because it did not print. I'm gonna put it in the I'm gonna put it in the comments below because I don't see it in the title. Today's title is understanding the power and purpose of your story. Understanding the 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 power and purpose of your story. So sometimes y'all gonna see me look down. It's because I have a lot of stories to tell, and so I can stay on topic and not start talking about another story. I have notes. I have my handy dandy notebook, and you wouldn't believe this is a different story. So I had, I'm gonna tell you all. So I had a person that does not use notes. They memorize uh, everything, and they also they use a script when they come in on social media, and that's fine. That's fine. You have to do what whatever level whatever makes it easier for you. That's what you have to do. I'm gonna press record so that I can record this because this is going on my social media. That was just an introduction and a startup. I'm going to reintroduce myself and the title of this. The great thing about social media is that you can watch it. Don't forget to share this this video. Hello everyone. My name is Jackie. I call myself a business mentor coach. And what does that mean? That just means that I give one-on-one coaching and training for my programs. And why is because I've noticed that two things let's say three things that I noticed about my coaching programs is 90% of the people that come to me because they saw something in me in them. Okay. So, and that was through the power of storytelling. So, and I'm a storyteller. That's how I teach. That's how I learn. And this is what you gain um, when you work with me, when you listen to me. I'm going to have a story. I'm always here to impact the audience that listen to my videos. So, I always want to leave you with a lesson. Okay. Another thing that I've learned, besides 90% of client attraction, another thing I learned is uh, I have to stay in the realm of my expertise. Okay. A lot of times we get confused, we get distracted, we start doing things that's not what we call to do. You know, we start investing in getting in other people's business. Okay, I'm gonna be straight up with you all. Getting into other people's business, worried about what somebody else ain't did, and I said ain't, that's right, haven't did or doing that has nothing to do with ourselves. And frankly, it is self-sabotage. And I said it. Today's topic is understanding the power and purpose of your story. Okay, because once you understand the power and the purpose of your story, you can get out of other people's business and start taking care of the purpose that God has given you when he created you. Okay, and that power is in your story. Y'all notice the t-shirt, there's power in my story. Y'all, that's available at www.jackiemckeever.com/links. I'm gonna put that in the comments. Anyway, so you may be wondering where I came up with that title. The third thing that I learned about myself, first thing is how people are attracted to me. Second thing is where my expertise lies. The third thing that I learned about me is it's important for me to take breaks. Okay. Taking breaks. Because sometimes we work, I tend to work, and I get so tired. I don't want to do it anymore. Like I'm no good to anybody, including myself. And certain things, and I share my story about depression. Okay. So that's not new. Okay. About depression. And one of the things that um, not trickles, triggers depression is being overexhausted, not being overwhelmed with things, and not giving myself time to rest when my body is clearly saying, Jackie, you need to rest. So in 2024, I'm going into the new year with a new outlook on life. You know, I feel like the God has spoken to me. The Holy Spirit has given me a new direction, a new mindset for 2024. And we're going to talk about um understanding the power and purpose in your story. See, because those things are in my story. Depression, anxiety is part of my story. Having certain triggers, that's part of my story, but it may not be your story. We all have a story that gives us purpose. We all have a power. We all have a position. We all have a story that life itself has given us to both learn from, teach, and if you are a business owner, to sell problem solving solutions to people who need the the solutions. What I'm doing right now is I'm typing the links for my t-shirts, my There's Power in My Story t-shirt. I love this t-shirt. Like usually I buy a larger size, because I like my shirts to normally be floaty, but it's okay. This one actually fits and I still look cute, child. Anyway, so understanding the power and purpose of your story. Now, when I create my things, generally what I do is I do PowerPoint. I do bullet points, I'm sorry. And so I have notes with bullet points. I want to share one of my favorite stories with you all. This is not my story, but it's a story that has been told time and time after again. You all heard of the story in John chapter 5. Well, Jesus asked the man, will thou be made whole? But I want you to understand the power and the purpose of that man's story. Okay. So when that man, when the man in the story, if you haven't heard of, I'm gonna give y'all a brief uh introduction to the story. I'm going to keep it real brief and put it in Generation X version. Okay. So it's not going to have the these and the does, but I'm going to get to the point. How the story went is there was an area called Bethesda, and people went there yearly because the angel of the Lord would come and stir the water, and people would get in the water and they would be healed of whatever was wrong with them. Okay. So people came from millions of people came from everywhere to Bethesda for this healing. And it was like a first come, first serve. That's who got healed. You didn't have time to waste because once it was over, it was over. So this man, he came and he had to believe that there was power in that story that he heard. There was power and purpose in that story. Because why would you go to a place if you did not believe that you could get healed? Did you copy what I'm? A lot of times we journey in life and we believe that if we do this, we'll have this type of outcome. But somewhere along the line, we get confused. We start doubting. We start doubting the vision and the purpose that God gave us. And so, in order for you to understand the power and purpose of your story, I'm getting to that. This man had to understand, number one, he had to trust that God knew what was best for him. Because if you read the story, the way the story went is that he laid in his bed waiting on Billy Bob and them. Okay, Billy Bob, Billie Jean, Joe, Junebug and them to help him to put him in the water. Now it was every man for themselves, because everything that needs to be, but everything that you need to be done, you cannot base on what somebody else is doing for you. See, because what your story, your power and your story requires these things, these three things I'm about to go over. Okay. For number one, he had to trust that God knew what was best for him. He had to trust the process. Now, he knew about the process, about every man for themselves, about if you got to the water first while the angel was there stirring the water, you were healed. But when Jesus came and asked him, will thou be made whole, there was a hesitation, because the man was like, I would, Jesus, but Billy Bob and them, they wouldn't put me in the water, blaming everybody for why he is not healed. He was holding on to doubt. He was self-sabotaging. And a lot of times we self-sabotage. I told you in the story when I started about the three things that I learned about myself, is I learned that 90% of the people who listen to my stories, who purchase and buy my t-shirts, my programs, my training, they do it because of my storytelling marketing, because they found that they saw themselves, an emotion came out or in a story that I told to them. Okay, so I learned that's where my voice lies. I learned that's where my expertise lies. Okay. The second thing I mentioned is I learned where my expertise lies. Yes, I freed myself of over $104 of debt. Yes, I have a master's in business, but I mean, you can actually be an expert in more than one area, and you can like really niche down to learn, and both in life, okay, and in business, of what attracts people to you. How do you impact people's lives? And it's by tuning into that expertise. Okay. Trusting that God knows what's best for you, meaning to trust the process. Okay. So part of me learning my process was number three, is learning that I have limitations. That in periods of me going and doing all this to secure an income, to ensure that I am serving the people who I'm meant to impact, I have to serve myself. I have to take brief periods of rest. Okay, vacation, holiday, whatever you want to call it. Rest is important, because I know too much of this can lead to depression. Too much of work can lead to anxiety. So it's important that I take breaks and listen to my body, what my body's trying to tell me. So the man who had laid there over 32 years, he had to listen to what Jesus was trying to tell him. He did not require him to Go jump in the water. He didn't say go get in the water. He asked them, do you want to be healed? Do you want to be whole? Do you want to be renewed again? Do you want to be purposely filled? Do you want to start impacting the people that you want? Do you want to understand the power and the purpose of your story? He had to understand that there was power in just saying the word yes. Because if you read the story, in the story, after the man, it didn't say that he said yes, but he had to give an answer because in the verse, Jesus responded to him and said, take up thy bed and walk. So take everything that you have, take your faults, take everything, your whole life story, everything that you've experienced with you. Because when you take that baggage with you, those things with you, not the things that God has healed you from. Okay, because remember, in that scripture, it says that he was healed. So what he gave him was Jesus allowed him to get up and leave with the tools, the skills, the knowledge, the understanding, he repurposed that man's life by removing the things that weren't God given or was no longer part of his continued journey. See, a lot of times we're unable to hear what God is saying. And I believe that God speaks to us in many ways, right? He speaks to us through scripture. Some people he may even speak to through prayer life. He may even speak to you in your dreams. But God does speak to us some way. You get an epiphany, you get this feeling in your gut. A lot of times God has spoken to us or given us a vision for our lives, but we haven't leaned into the vision that God has given us. And when you lean into the vision, to lean into the vision, it requires three things. It requires time, it requires energy, and it requires investment. You're like, what? Wait a minute. What is she talking about? Is she talking about tithes? I'm not talking about, in this particular story, I'm not talking about tithes because sometimes people think, oh, I get my 10% all the time. But in order for you to understand your power and purpose of your story, there's more than your investment requires more than monetary things, right? It requires for you to take one-on-one time with God to start learning his word. If you start, I'm gonna give y'all an example. So if you all follow me, you notice that I bought this book, right? And I had intended on posting, being done with this book by now, but I'm not. The book is called Discerning the Voice of God, right? How to recognize when God speaks. Now, I'm not going to say this is a bad book. This is a good book. However, when I was reading it, I felt like I needed to have more understanding because I wasn't understanding everything that was coming in this book. So I discovered that she actually had an earlier edition of the book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that other edition. In that other edition, I did start previewing the audio version, and the earlier edition, she explains more, and I feel because I recognize my voice, how I learn, my expertise, my investment, how do I develop, develop, into how do I incorporate these things into my life? And it's through learning. I understand my learning process, right? I understand in order for me to uh discern the voice of God more, develop my relationship with God, I have to lean in to the vision that God has for me, and that's through learning. But this isn't the only book that I bought. So I did start reading this book, and I got it upside down. This book is by Miles Monroe. He was a pastor. He's a pastor, and it's called Understanding the Purpose and the Power of Prayer: How to Call Heaven to Earth. Now, I am enjoying this book, okay? And in this book, and in this book, the difference is the language. This book does take you through like study questions and things of that nature. And I just started reading this book. I haven't gotten that far to truth be told. I haven't gotten that far because I've been focusing on trying to get this book out the way because I don't want to have to balance both of them, right? And why did I say all that? I'm investing time, energy, and my money to lean in into the vision that God has for my life. And that's what's required. I'm not saying that you got to spend bukus and bukus of money on what people have written, but it wouldn't hurt you to read a book or two. Okay. Actually, truth be told, reading books is the least expensive way of learning lessons, but it just depends on what type of learner you are. Sometimes your learning may require one-on-one one-on-one with training courses. So not only you hear, it may require audio and visual. You may be an audio and a visual learner. You may have to have things translated. It's different, but it's the important thing is that you lean unto the vision that God has for your life. And we all have been born with a purpose. We all have been called to do something, right? If we use the church for example, you have your ushers, you have your pastors, you have your deacons, and they all have different roles, and each one of them are important to the kingdom. The usher is just as important as the preacher on the pulpit, because without the ushers um coordinating everything, okay, things will not run in an orderly fashion. The pastor doesn't have time to make sure people get up and go the way they're supposed to go. That the plate gets where it's supposed the offering plate gets where it's supposed to. That people are ushered in and sat where they're supposed to. He don't have time for that. He have to rely on those ushers to get those things done. They play they position, okay? That was extra. That ain't even part of my notes. The third thing I want to talk about is creating an atmosphere for learning. So the reason why I brought up those books is I'm creating an atmosphere for learning, not just learning, but developing, right? Because we can like study all day, but we don't use those things. It's important that we use those things, and we not only use them once, but we put them in practice. Just like a doctor practice medicine. They don't go say, okay, I done seen a patient today, I'm done. They continue to practice medicine. You have to continue to practice by growing or developing your understanding of your power, the understanding the purpose of the story that God has given you, the purpose, the position, okay, the power that God has given, the talent that God has given you. You have to read, you have to study and you have to use in order to create an atmosphere of learning and developing. And those three things, those are just three things. Is it? There are so much more in store. I do plan on sharing more of what I've learned in those things. I just wanted to share that little tidbit, and this was understanding the power and the purpose of your story. You all don't forget to share, and y'all support more videos by purchasing you a t-shirt. There's power in my story. Don't let nobody tell you that you don't have power in your story. Your story is has value. There's somebody out there that needs to learn the lessons that you've learned. And if you keep it to yourself, how they going to learn it? Because that's one of the unique things or the best things I love about God is where I am weak, you are strong. And where you're weak, I am strong. And that what makes us a community. So you have to get involved with your community. Okay? Get in, find your tribe. Anyway, I don't want to go keep you all too long. I said I was going to keep this short, and my time is up. Listen, don't forget to share and purchase your t shirt. Thanks for listening.